Greetings, I present to you the SMK, the Sentinel's Marvellous Kaleidoscope, on CFRU 93.3 FM in Guelph, Ontario, through the web on CFRU.ca, and syndicating across Canada. I am your guardian overseer, Nicholas Cooper. We will be looking inward and beyond along the branches of progressive, fusion, and alternative genres. A long, unseen friendly anomaly, and other unique discoveries near and far. Join me as we gaze into the audible lens out at the diverse musical landscape on the ever-changing horizon. Hey, looks good on your side?
Looks great on my side. Look at this. Look how great it looks.
Awesome. Welcome, my good sentries, to an audience far from the Observational Tower, my interview series I conduct here on the Sentinel's Marvellous Kaleidoscope through digital remote means during the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining me in this edition's congregation is a sweet, chill musical companion of mine who I've known and I've shared the performance stage with for the last couple of years. Could you introduce yourself, your solo musical persona, and your pronouns to us?
Hello. My name is Christopher Harry. My solo musical, whatever you want to call it, moniker, artist name, my nom de plume is Kitjohari. And my pronouns are he, him.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me, Chris. How are you doing? It's been so long since I've seen your face.
Yeah, it has been a while, hasn't it? I haven't seen you, I think, since... Were you at the, what was it? The Tarzanax Animatus show that was at that brewery in Guelph? It was like last March 3rd, 2020.
No, I don't believe I was at that performance.
I can't remember the last time I saw you, but I'm doing great. Things are objectively terrible, but I'm all right.
Yeah, I know how you feel, Chris. I know that. Where are you currently joining us from?
I am in Waterloo, Ontario.
Excellent. I haven't been into KW in such a long time. Yeah, like as you said, and it's been a long time since we've chatted, though I don't think we've actually really deeply chatted one-on-one before, I don't believe.
I think the night I met you, we talked a fair bit. I remember talking to you about the radio stuff, because I was doing radio stuff at the time. And I was like, hey, you do the radio stuff? Hey, I do the radio stuff. Hey. And we talked for a little bit in downtown Guelph. But since then, which has been like almost 2 years now, yeah, we haven't really had a heart-to-heart.
Yeah, this will be like, I guess, special on a personal level, getting to know each other in this way, though more mainly getting to know you.
Yeah. I guess so. I guess that's what we're here for. It's what the audience wants.
Yes, the good sentries want to hear about you.
Oh, those lovely sentries.
Yeah. So I have some, I guess, fun and serious, deep questions before we get into the main concrete music related questions. Would you like to have the fun question, the deep question, or the COVID-19 checkup first?
Let's do the COVID-19 checkup. Get that out of the way.
Yeah. How have you been handling the pandemic, for which would be almost approaching a year since it's taken hold of our lives?
Yeah. Well, to be quite honest with you, I guess the first 8 or 9 months of it, just I wasn't handling it as good as I could have been. That's for sure. I've certainly been fairly productive, but there was a lot of just bad habits and languishing and just emotional turmoil, and not really doing as much as I wish I could have. But the last month or so has really been brighter. I've gotten a lot more done, and I'm feeling a bit more chipper about the whole thing. It's not weighing on my mind as much, as frustrating as it obviously is. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess when the pandemic first hit, it really shook like everyone's foundation and just how to really handle it.
Oh yeah.
And then each of us handles it differently. So thankfully, you've figured out, I guess, a pattern or what you personally need to do to survive during
Exactly.
this like social distancing time.
Exactly. I think the thing I needed to do to survive was I needed to stop drinking, and I've done that, and things are much better now. Much better. I've become a human being again. Yay!
Yeah, that's great. Has there, I guess, as like being stopping the drinking, is that one way of getting through everything? Has there been other strategies that you've taken up to help get through this time?
Yeah. Waking up every day at either between like 6 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. And, obviously as a result, going to bed early too. Stretching every day, going on long walks, working out, trying to eat better. And all of this has also happened in the last month. And yeah, just writing to-do lists, just trying to get some kind of structure going, even though I'm just kind of sitting at home, keep myself a bit busier than, I guess, than I would be if I were to just lay in bed all day and watch Netflix.
Yeah, structure really helps at this time. Just finding the right tasks and passions to work on when we're stuck at home. Though, like Netflix is a little bit fun to do every so often.
Oh, of course. It's just not doing exclusively that all day long and then ordering a pizza at the end of the day and then falling asleep, which is closer to what I was doing before.
Would you now like the fun question or the deep question?
Let's do the fun question.
Fun question. I thought this was really neat question that I came up with. Do you have a favorite flower or plant?
Yeah. I guess it would probably be aloe vera, because aloe vera is a really cool plant, and more or less figuratively and literally, excuse me. Right. I mean, people use it to cure their burns. It has that quality to it. It grows in a desert, so the fact that it has cooling properties is kind of paradoxical in a lot of ways. It's also shown to help heal wounds faster because it has antimicrobial and antifungal properties. I think it also works as a laxative. It increases your white blood cell count, stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. Aloe's cool. I have an aloe vera plant out in the living room. I wish I could bring it here, but I'm not going to step away just to get the plant.
That's all good. Yeah, that's a good answer. Like a very multi-purpose plant, and you can see here. Like for our, I guess for our radio listeners, I have my plant, my snake plant next to me because I got that just like during the pandemic because I needed something living, something living in my room, and it's supposed to actually be good for like a air purifying, like a natural air purifier.
Cool. Yeah. And it's rather big too, isn't it? Jeez, look at that thing.
Yeah, I got one of the bigger ones, and I love it.
Nice. Did you have a name for it?
Oh, no, I never really thought to give it a name. Uh, should I try and name it now?
No pressure. No pressure. You can come up with something that feels good. But have you ever just like touched it? Like just pet it? Because, you know, plants can feel that. They have receptors, and they kind of enjoy that. I remember reading some kind of study or research where if you touch your plants, they don't respond, but they realize that they're being touched, you know?
No, I didn't know that. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
do this now.
There you go.
And I'll do that more. I think the name Cynthia came to mind. Maybe
Nice.
that might be its name. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. If it sticks, right?
Yeah. So now for the deep question. I guess this is one that I've started actually asking all the artists. What is your current life quests?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess I have a couple. First one, I need to get to Europe. I haven't left this continent. As soon as the pandemic's over, I am getting out of here for like a month at least. But I guess like short term, I'm trying to put together a poetry book because I don't know. I've been writing poetry for like at least the last 10 years, and I'd never really published any of it for the most part outside of like 2 zines like 7 years ago or something. So that's something I'd like to get done. And yeah, maybe quitting smoking cigarettes, because smoking cigarettes is bad. It's not good. It's a waste of money, and it just makes you smell like an ashtray. No one wants that. It's not the 1930s anymore. Smoking isn't cool.
Yeah, certainly. No, I didn't know you wrote your own poetry.
Oh yeah. I've been doing it for quite some time. I don't know. It just feels natural to me. I've tried writing like short stories and other stuff like that, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel as intuitive for me to do that as it does to write poetry. And I've always read poetry too. I have a bunch of poetry books. You read it online. Gone out to like spoken word poetry events as well. I used to live with someone who ran a spoken word poetry event in Mississauga, and just in the West GTA. And yeah, I don't know. I've always been exposed to it, and I just love it. It's great. It's fast paced in a lot of ways because it's just this massive commingling of words, and it just produces all of these images and feelings. And you would take a couple of pages to reach that kind of emotional impact if you're reading a story or something. There's a lot more setup and preamble, whereas poetry is just direct. It's all killer, no filler.
No, I totally understand that. I guess I've been trying to do something in the line of poetry myself.
Nice.
Like I'm usually not good with writing, and sometimes it's hard to express myself, but like I have my own music, which that really helps. And then
Yeah.
I've started to make, like, in addition to my music, like a little like descriptive like poem to go along with it for like an extra layer of understanding and expression.
Yeah, that's cool. That makes a lot of sense. You're going to do it like when you release an album, you're going to have like a poem for like every track kind of thing?
That is something I'll have to think about because I've only been releasing single tracks right now, but in the works are some actually some EPs of my own Pure Zulvi project.
Hey, Piers on the attack. Nice.
Yeah, so I don't know if it maybe I'll think about it. I'll think about it.
Cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that and hearing it.
Excellent. Yeah. um, well, that'll be for another time because we are going to be now talking more about your music.
Oh no. Do we really have to? Okay.
I guess now, as I guess we've already kind of disclaimed it that we have a personal connection. Do you remember how we first met?
Yeah, it was a district. I guess I was kind of talking about it earlier. It was the Youngster show with Crown and Jester and Ned Flangers and someone else.
Sages.
Sages. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. Sorry, Sages. Sorry, I forgot about you. Yeah, no, we met there. I remember. I mean, you're a tall fella. You stick out in the crowd. And I was just like, who's that guy? And yeah, we ended up getting to talking. And we both had radio shows at the time, too. So we were just kind of geeking each other up about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the radio connection was, I think, probably the spark between us.
Definitely, yeah.
So, actually, then in that line of thought, that connection was also brought upon through our mutual friendship with Jesse Ellercon and Brent O'Toole, who run Glue Gun Records, the label that you're releasing your Kitjohari music on.
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet those fellas?
Well, this is a bit of a long story, I guess, with as far as Jesse is concerned. Not long, but it just goes far back. Jesse lives in Brampton. He's in Peel region. And when I first started playing music out in the scene, I was living in Mississauga at the time. That's arguably where I've spent most of my life, is out in Meadowvale. And I just remember seeing him all over Facebook, posting in the musicians groups, looking to play with a band as early back as 2012, I want to say. We would always get just little wafts of Jesse through the internet. We would see him around and stuff, because he's just this omnipresent being. He's all over the place constantly. And that has never not been the case with Jesse. I think I actually met him, though, for the first time. I don't know, probably 2015 or 2016 or something, once he got a band started. I cannot remember the name of that band, but I remember seeing him out at the Doors in Hamilton, playing a show. And yeah, but I didn't really get to really truly know him until I moved to Kitchener in 2018. There was this jam hall that the band I'm in, Karloff, we were using at the time. And I just saw Jesse all over the place at this jam hall because he was heavily involved with a tape label that was being run out of it. And he was in Ned Flangers and they practiced there. And that's how I met Brent, as I walked in on a Flangers practice and I was like, who's that guy? And yeah, we spoke a little bit. So yeah, that's basically it. I met Jesse through Brent being in Ned Flangers. Yeah. Or no. I met Brent through Jesse. Whoops.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I got that backwards. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Cool. Yeah. I guess the DIY underground community has that way of getting those connections growing.
Definitely. And also just Jesse's constant nomadic behavior, I would say, because he's all over the place. I mean, he lives in Brampton and I met him didn't meet him, but got to really know him in Kitchener and I didn't have to go anywhere. He was just always around. It's just the guy's style. But yeah, the scene does breed that sort of interconnectivity and that sort of network.
I just realized when you mentioned living here, I think that must be another connection that we grew up in Meadowvale.
Oh yeah, right. We
Yeah.
talked about this the night we met. I forgot about that. Where did you live? I forgot, man.
So I guess my intersections. Hope no one tries and find me though. It's Winston Churchill and Derry.
Winston Churchill and Derry. Okay, I know exactly where that is. I was closer to Aquitaine and Montevideo, so like pretty close to the GO station.
Okay, yes.
Just down the street from the town center and stuff like that.
Oh, that's really close. That was.
Yeah, honestly, we're like diametrically like just other sides of Aquitaine and Winston Churchill. I mean, I used to walk by Derry and Winston Churchill all the time because I had some friends who lived further on near Lisgar and stuff like that. So I'd always be walking down Derry to get to that plaza with the metro and the old Blockbuster. You probably remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy how much that place has changed. It's just not the same like little town anymore. It's wild.
Yeah. Mississauga is huge.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I first moved there, that whole Lisgar area wasn't even that built up. There was just like so many fields and stuff. I mean, I moved there in like 1998, I want to say, from Quebec and stuff. And yeah, like the amount of just growth that's happened there is ridiculous. In 20 years, it's just like stuff is everywhere. There's no more fields when you go all the way down Winston Churchill.
Yeah, certainly. I guess, the only natural place I know now is I don't know, it's called a wind rush forest. Do you know that?
That kind of rings a bell. Is it by the train tracks?
Yeah.
But like behind like the Esso station on Derry?
Yes.
I used to BMX there with some friends. There was that one section of the forest that had all those like hills that people had set up. Yeah, I spent a lot of time there too.
It's still there.
I didn't know. I did. Is it?
Yeah.
No way. Jeez. I that's crazy. I remember I didn't even know that's what it was called, to be honest with you, because I always just used to walk by. I don't remember seeing signs or anything, but it's good to know that that's what the name of it is. That's what, I don't know. That's the only forest I could think of. So that makes sense. Yeah. I bailed more than 2 times at least there. I remember just BMXing with my cassette like player, just like in my backpack and just like face planting into a tree stump like a goon. Oh yeah, good times. Good old Meadowvale.
Now let us actually talk more about, I guess, your upbringing, more like in terms of music. Okay. How did you begin your musical life journey? Like in terms of like being a musician as well as just a general music listener?
Well, it kind of goes far back. I guess I'll start with my grandfather. He was a musician. He played in jazz bands out in Detroit and stuff in the 40s. Played in army bands when he was over in Europe fighting the Germans, and was studying composition before my grandmother made him get a real job. And so through his musical abilities, my dad just kind of floated towards music, and he was always enamored with it. We were working in record stores in high school, playing guitar and drums and bass and stuff like that. And he's basically always been a musician behind the scenes. So when I was living in Quebec, essentially how it worked is my father he's from Detroit. He's American, right? And he's not bilingual. He couldn't speak French. So he was taking care of us at home a lot, me and my sister. So he was always listening to music, playing guitar. So music was always just around me from the moment I entered this earth, arguably. I was always just surrounded by it, and I just kind of naturally gravitated towards it at an early age. I started off listening to all the cool stuff the kids were listening to, like whatever, Billy Talent, Sum 41, Blink-182, all that sort of stuff, Linkin Park, Nirvana, Metallica. And but through my father's musical direction, because he never ever stopped playing music, I started to pay attention to some of the stuff he would play for me in the car. Like he had these old King Crimson cassette tapes and Yes cassette tapes. And, you know, this is in like the early 2000s. So we still had cars with tape decks in them. And, you know, once I started heading towards high school, I was just like, hey, what's all this stuff about? What is King Crimson? Who's the pink man yelling on the cover of that album? This seems interesting. I'm going to look more into this. And I started kind of paying attention to it, and drifting further and further away from the punk rock that I was just, you know, magnetized to the same way everyone else was. And whatever, the hip hop that was around at the time as well, like Outkast and Eminem and 50 Cent, all the stuff that was playing on the radio. So by the time I got to high school, I just was a little bit more invested in what my father had been trying to show me for a long time. I was listening to like Pat Metheny and a lot of the prog rock bands like Yes and Genesis and King Crimson. And I guess if I need to dial it back a little bit, when I was 10 years old, my father took me to Steve's Music in Toronto because there's just this thing. He would always bring me downtown. He wanted to show me the big city, you know, and I was obviously a kid just like, wow, oh my God, this is amazing. So the drum department is on the second floor of Steve's Music. I don't know if it still is, but I assume that that's still the case. So he brought me in, and, you know, he automatically goes to the acoustic guitar room because that's more his style, as far as guitars are concerned, at least. And I just kind of, you know, started nosing around, being a little explorer that I was, and I found the staircase going upstairs, and I was like, what's up here? I want to find out. So I go upstairs, and the drums are there. And as a 10-year-old, just full of piss and vinegar, I was just like, oh, I get to hit things? Oh my God. So I got on a drum kit and tried to play System of a Down or something. I don't know. But anyways, my father had lost track of me and started to panic a bit. So he got the front desk to page the entire store asking about me because he couldn't find me. And then the lady who was at the drum department was like, oh, he's up here. And my dad saw me trying to play drums, and, you know, like whatever, he just got really, really excited and bought me a pair of drumsticks. So from age 10 till about age 14, I was just hitting everything and anything I could. Pots and pans and phone books at home, my school desk in class. I don't know how many times my drumsticks got taken away by the teacher. Oh. Too many times. I would also like wreck the bus seats. Like there was all these like plastic kind of vinyl bus seats, and I would just hit them so much that the plastic would heat up, and from the repeated action of it would start drooping down and leaving all of these pock marks.
Well, that's crazy.
I was just destroying stuff just from an early age, and air drumming a lot too. I remember in grade 7, grade 8, just sitting in the stairwell of my school, just like with my drumsticks hitting nothing, trying to play along to Green Day or something. So I worked this like little tiny job at Miriam School of Music, which is where my father works, out in Oakville. They were having a tent sale or something like that. And my dad managed to get me to show up there and help them move a bunch of random stuff. And I got like a couple of $100 over the course of a week. And they had some beater Westbury drum kit lying around the store with solar cymbals, just like the most bottom line entry level equipment you could possibly imagine. And my father was like, hey, you know, there's a drum kit there, huh? You want to spend your money on it? I've been begging my mom for years, please, Mom, buy me a drum kit. And she was just like, I will not have that. No way. So my father conspired with me and let me bring this drum kit home with the money I'd made working at the tent sale. And I just kind of brought it home. And I was so excited. And my father's like, yeah, you got a drum kit. And my mom was just like, don't play it when I'm here, basically. So once I got a drum kit in grade 9, it was around the same time that I started listening to a lot of the music my father was telling me about, which is the point at which I dialed the story back. So yeah, now I'm listening to King Crimson and Pat Metheny and all sorts of just old 70s music, and I'm getting into it. And I think I know absolutely everything about music because I'm listening to stuff that's different. I'm so cool. I went to a Bill Bruford drum clinic at Mohawk College in the fall of 2006. That was a huge, huge inspirational moment for me because I got to meet the guy whose music or drumming I was listening to, and I was a huge fan of him. And then, yeah, I don't know, things just sort of took off from there. started getting into Dream Theater, because they are like whatever the height of progressive rock and progressive metal, and they were just blowing my head open. I hadn't heard anything like that. But then I just kind of kept moving down the line, and from the Dream Theater I went on to Opeth and the Mars Volta, and from the Mars Volta and Opeth I went on to Meshuggah and Dillinger Escape Plan, stuff like that, you know. And things just kind of kept snowballing from there. I was in my high school band as the drummer. Yeah, I don't know. That's how I got my start, really. It was just kind of always around. Pretty long-winded story, but, you know.
That's really a descriptive there, Chris. That's great. And I like some influence with prog music in there.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, we were just mentioning before in our interview, I have Yes's Close to the Edge gatefold a poster of it just behind me.
Yeah, I spotted that immediately, and I was like, I know exactly what that is. And it was your father's. You mentioned that as well, right?
Yeah, like I guess the same as your father inspired like some of your musical tastes and upbringing. My dad influenced my listening with prog, like mainly through his vinyl collection.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah,
hey,
this is
we're brothers. Put her there.
Yeah.
Boom. There we go.
Great. What else I think here actually here's a interesting question because as part of Yumster, the whole concept I guess correct me if I'm wrong, the whole concept of the band is it's entirely improvised music.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on improvisation?
It's good. That's a really good question. My thoughts on improvisation. I don't know. It's it should be improvisation. I mean, you know, you can have your musical repertoire to kind of filter through that improvisational lens, so to speak. But really, it's just a conversation. I think it's more about listening to what's happening than it is about playing something cool or whatever, you know? Like, I feel like if you can't listen to what's happening, then you're probably just going to stumble around and just step on a bunch of people's toes kind of thing. It should be a communal conversation, a bunch of people coming together to form a specific idea or shift in and out of ideas, not someone just trampling through the whole thing, just doing wicked guitar licks, you know, or whatever it may be. So yeah, realistically, those are my thoughts. It's a beautiful conversation, and listening is the most important part of it. I think that if you're a skilled listener of music and just of anything, people talking, you know, conversing, because language is the form of music, in my opinion, then you're going to, and if you have like, you know, musical ability like to play an instrument, or maybe not even necessarily musical ability to play an instrument, then, you know, you'll be able to improvise. Because there's plenty of improvisational jam bands that, you know, you can argue sound primitive in comparison to, say, like a bunch of school jazz musicians out of Norway or something like that. Like aspects of the Velvet Underground, you know, like that song Sister Ray. That's like, it's like improvised punk rock or something, you know. Maureen Tucker is just like she just doesn't stop. She's just a machine just beating away, you know. She's not trying to do some crazy polyrhythms or anything. She's just plowing through that. Or like the Nihilist Spasm Band out of London, Ontario. They're a pretty good example in my opinion, because they just kind of go out of their way to be as primitive as possible. So yeah, I don't know, improvisation, I'm sure a lot of people think it has to be this like really great, not gracious, really academic and schooled, and like you have to like know every scale and have gone to music school to be able to do it. And that's not the truth. That's not the truth, kids. Anyone can improvise. You just got to listen.
Yeah, certainly. Like I've only gotten into improvisation in the last few years, and I guess that's also a main component of my own Pure Zulvai music. It was through the University of Guelph's contemporary music ensemble that I was taught that you like as you're saying, it's not it shouldn't be a sophisticated, or can be a sophisticated art, like musical expression. It can, like, anyone can do it through listening and talking through music with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Arguably, that's where music came from. It's from improvisation, cavemen or whatever, just like banging on rocks, discovering sounds. They weren't studying like Mozart, they were just expressing themselves however they knew how. And that's truly the heart of improvisation, is just expression. And yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I always like talking about improv. It's very interesting.
Can we time out for a second? I really need to go to the bathroom.
Oh.
Aquela coisa do tropicalismo foi um jogaço. Pra mim, então, mais do que... Eu tenho a impressão que mais do que pra todos. Eu e Gal, especialmente Gal, ele não era só você mesmo. E eu, até mais eu, né? Então, foi uma coisa só de paixão absoluta pela expressão, pela coisa da música, pelos compromissos com a sedução. O lugar onde a gente chegou, pelos problemas que a gente teve que enfrentar. Com a sedução, o lugar onde a gente chegou, pelos problemas que a gente teve que enfrentar.
Addictive, it gets to be like a drug, and we always equate it to smoking. If you try smoking and like it, it's very difficult to give it up, and the same goes with
So, as we alluded to before, we are fellow radio hosts, or at least a ex-radio host, I guess, because you told me you are kind of maybe on a hiatus from radio hosting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I took a little break. Been taking a little break. I mean, long and short of it is, I just moved far away from the station I was at, and I don't drive, and it started to become annoying for me to go to and from the radio station. But I'm now in a better position to get to and from that radio station. I'm closer to the train line out here in Waterloo, so I'm thinking about resuming there at CKMS 102.7. But yeah, I still got 2 months of membership dues that have been that I'm late on, and I feel bad about that. And also, right now during the pandemic and stuff, I just don't feel comfortable going into the studio because they're still hosting live like that. And I don't know. I want to wait till that's all kind of sorted out before I show up. That doesn't excuse me not paying my dues, but yeah.
No, I completely understand that. Like, that's the same way for CFRU. Like, well, I guess for us, we aren't allowing anyone into the station, but I guess we also have the benefit, I guess the privilege of being able to like put like pre-recordings up and like through our system.
Yeah, I think they have that at CKMS as well. I'm honestly, I shouldn't say that they're exclusively doing in studio stuff. I don't know what the situation is. I'm still on the emailing list, and I haven't read one of their emails in at least a year. But I do remember there was a point where they were resuming back in the studio, but I don't know what the status is for that. I'm sure a lot of people are doing either like live to airs from their house or whatever, because they have those capabilities over there, or pre-recording it and sending it in and such.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. So I wanted to bring up, because we're both, like, I guess, in our line of radio hosting, like music aficionados, I wanted to ask what styles of music you really gravitate to.
I mean, like jazz for sure. That's 100%, because that was the theme of my radio show, was jazz. And my father loves jazz. He was always playing it to me as a kid, telling me all these crazy stories from the 70s and 80s about him playing jazz. And arguably, that's probably about a quarter of my record collection is jazz. But I also really like classical. I guess for the simple reason that as a record collector, you can find really cheap classical records. Pay $2 for an entire symphony, which is great, because beats paying $35 for like a Boards of Canada reissue or something like that. Not that the two are comparable or anything in any way. They're very different kinds of music, but the point is that you can develop like a classical record collection really easily by just looking it up and seeing what it's all about. I got to a point in my musical kind of journey that I realized, oh wow, I don't really know all that much about classical music, and that is essentially the majority of musical history is classical music. So maybe I should look into this. And I just started buying them up and reading books about it, and I learned to really truly appreciate not only the historical context of it, but also just the musical qualities that are involved. I mean, there's so many different eras of classical music. So yeah, I've grown into classical music a lot. But I don't know. I mean, I gravitate to most things. I mean, I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, not to say, oh, I listen to everything on the planet. I'm not going to be able to live long enough to listen to everything that this planet has to offer musically. But I love rock. I love experimental rock. I love avant-garde music. I love hip hop. I love electronic. I love Brazilian music. I love African music. Folk music, blues, like a lot of stuff. a lot of stuff, I would say, but jazz is number one. The head honcho is jazz for sure.
Excellent. Yeah, I totally get your what you said about like liking everything. That's what like the SMK, that's what it's grown into pretty much. An eclectic like mixture of different music that comes my way, and I like it and I want to share it with people.
Yeah. That's the way to be. There's too much music out there. It's hard to ignore music. At least for me, I can't just be like, I don't care about classical music or something. You know, it's all fascinating to me, and you could learn to appreciate most anything if you just really put your mind to it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So you did mention a vinyl collection. Is that one of your main ways you hear new music? And if not, what are your tools for finding new music?
Yeah, I mean, like as I previously said, for sure, for like classical music and stuff, there's so much of it out there that yeah, I will find a lot of new classical music that way. But I tend to, look stuff up beforehand before buying a record, because records are fairly expensive. It's not always the case, sometimes I'll just find something by an artist that I'm aware of, like Sunhouse or like an old Fleetwood Mac record I've never heard or something like that. And I'll be like, oh, what's this? Okay, I'll buy it. But realistically, the internet is more how I discover a lot of stuff. YouTube is definitely one of the most important tools to me, but it's just everything. I mean, sometimes I'll be reading a book and it'll mention a record or a song, and I'm like, okay, what's that? And I'll look into it. Or I'm talking to a friend and they're telling me about something, and I'm like, okay, I'll look into that. Or I'm on Last.fm or on Discogs or on Wikipedia looking up like the personnel on a jazz record, and I'm like, oh, I've seen that name. I didn't know that guy was on here. I wonder what he's made. And all of a sudden I'm looking at his discography and I'm seeing another guy who was on his record. And I'm like, oh, what's that guy made? It's just this constant like Byzantine conduit of discovery. What I don't use Spotify, and I want to explicitly say that because I'm a bit of a jerk. I just don't like the way that they don't pay people. And I feel bad about using peer-to-peer sharing networks to get my hands on certain music, because with some records, it's just impossible to find. I don't want to pay $1,500 to get something. Or if I'm paying iTunes, I know that the music or the money isn't going to the artist, especially if the artist is dead or something. It's like BMG owns the rights to the music. It's not going to their family members or anything like that. But at the same time, I still feel weird about it. So to say that Spotify is not cool while I download, records, is a little paradoxical and a little hypocritical of me. But at the same time, there's exceptions, because there is plenty of stuff that you just will not find anywhere else. There's rare records or expensive records, or like I said, records where the money's just going to a corporation and I'm like, I don't care,
Yeah, it's complex.
It is. It's not black and white. It's really, really complex. If the artist is alive and I'm cruising through Bandcamp or something, you bet I'll buy it, because they're going to get it directly, especially Bandcamp, because they get that money immediately, or like 90% of it or whatever. So it makes sense to do that, in my opinion, just for Bandcamp, because they're awesome.
Yeah, Bandcamp is my main platform for supporting artists and listening to, or sometimes, new music as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like all the many platforms, all the musical streams out there are like helpful tools in one way or another.
I mean, there's so much of it. It's like hard to even kind of answer the question like concisely, I mean, there's like SoundCloud, like I was doing this thing. I have this friend in Florence that I met online, and he's studying jazz. Shout outs Federico. Anyways, we were on Skype the other day, and we do this thing where we share screens and we show each other like jazz songs or jazz performances usually, so we can watch it. And I was telling him about Bandcamp, and he was like, "Oh, cool." And then I said, "Yeah, like let's see what kind of jazz is in Florence." You just add the jazz tag and then add the Florence tag, and lo and behold, like 50 records popped up, and we were cruising through all of them, and we found this really, really cool album with Peter Erskine on drums and John Patitucci on bass. I forget the name of the guy because there's just too much music all the time. But it was great. And he was like, "Wow, I had no idea this guy was from Florence. This is amazing." And he was a piano player, just like my friend. And no. It's just everywhere. It's really cool. I love it. Because it wasn't always like this, Before the advent of the internet, like as my father tells me, he's like, you had tape trading, people just ripping copies of albums and just passing them along to each other, people bootlegging stuff, bootlegging vinyl. Or to find out about, a dozen different artists you never heard about, you had to write into the record label specifically and ask them to send you a mailer catalog. And then you would just be like, "Okay, what's that? I don't know." You had no way of finding out unless you had like a book or something that described the person. And a lot of this stuff's new, so there was very little information out there. So you just kind of had to gamble on it and buy it without even hearing it, which is super cool. It's a crazy risk that we don't have to take these days,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I don't know if you've ever seen this in a vinyl record, especially with jazz ones. I see this all the time. On the old sleeves, they'll have like this like diagram with like 25 records. In fact, here, I have one right in front of me. Jesus, perfect. So something like this. Like this is from the inner sleeve of a Lenny Tristano live record. And it has like all these albums and all these names. And back then you'd be like, "Oh, who's David Amram? I've never heard that name before. Billy Cullum's Glass Menagerie? I don't know what that is. I know who Billy Cullum is. Chico Freeman? Sounds cool, You didn't, that was Google back then for a lot of record listeners, And it's just wild how it's grown out. But it's also cool to think about, like, just narrow the informational highway was back then, It was one lane.
Yeah, I guess less channels, but in some cases like that, like record sleeve, like really resourceful, innovative ways to like spread and promote music back then.
Yeah. And I feel like if you were listening at that point, you just appreciate it a bit more if you found something cool, because it was this physical discovery that you made, You didn't have someone just compiling these lists on the internet that you just press a couple buttons, hit enter, and then you're like looking at this world of music. It's like, wow, I discovered this. I went into a store physically, bought this giant physical record, and then found this thing, and then ordered a record from it. And now that record's here, and it's awesome. All me. Woo! It's just a bit more exhilarating, in my opinion, than just surfing through endless lines of information.
Yeah, that's one thing I hope to do once the pandemic's over, to get back into some record stores and find some neat discoveries.
Oh boy, yeah, please.
So why don't we now, finally, let's talk about Kitjohari, your music. So first I want to say, on your Facebook page, I really love your photo of you on your drum set with the purple alien on your shoulder.
The inflatable alien. Yeah. Me and my roommates at the time had won that at Palladium. And it was just sitting in the jam room, and I had this weird curly wig. That's not my actual hair. No way. I don't have, and I don't know. I was just feeling goofy. And, I took that picture. That was like 6 years ago. It's a good picture. And also, I'm lying. That alien's actually my dad.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's my father. Yeah.
Cool. Alien son. So Kitjohari, where did this name come from, and what does it mean?
Well, it's just a weird interpolation of my name. One day I was just looking up the short forms, like the short names of Christopher, which is my full name, my full first name. And I found out that Kit was a way of shortening my name. And I was just kind of like, oh, what? That seems weird. That doesn't seem intuitive at all, but I guess it makes sense. If you just take out the C, or if you take out the H, R, and the S, you're left with Kit phonetically. My middle name is George with an S at the end to highlight my French heritage, whatever. My mom made my dad do that. So, Joe is kind of like short for George too. And Hari is just me taking the Y out of my last name and replacing it with an I and then cutting an R out. So it's just my name, basically, just remodeled to sound cooler.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. Really thought out for just to make it sound a little cooler.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of stumbled upon the idea in one day. I can't even remember when.
When you were trying to find a name for this solo project of yours?
I don't think I was trying to find a name. I wasn't like concertedly trying to find a name. I just kind of came up with that one day, just aside from everything. I was like, oh, okay. Hey, that works. And it just kind of happened,
All right. Excellent. So from all the talk we've been talking about with like jazz and like improvisation, your music with this project is kind of different in the way that it's arranged and presented. So can you talk to us about the music you produce?
Well, it's essentially a massive audio collage of different sound sources. It's just a giant waveform collage, really. Yeah, I don't know. I take a lot from like the early days of sampling, like the late 80s. And I guess even into the 90s, from electronic music and hip hop and all of that culture, because they use more or less exclusively samples. Like when you listen to something like A Tribe Called Quest, they had drum machines and samplers and stuff like that. But a lot of the times they would sample all the elements and just exclusively use samples, and you would have this new whole come out of it. Like something you'd hear like Marley Marl produce on like, or something like that, or like Eric B. and Rakim. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's where the music comes from, at least as far as like what inspires it. Because I don't know. I mean, these days you have a lot more technology to be able to create your own sounds and build up from that. But I was just interested in that short, brief span of electronic and hip hop music where they were just working not exclusively with samples, but that was a huge, huge drawing point for the genres.
How did you get interested in using like samples and producing music like entirely from them?
That goes back to like a friend of mine I used to hang out with after high school. He was showing me a lot of like early rave music and a lot of hip hop. And I was like, I was aware of what sampling was, at least at that point, or at least of the concept, but I wasn't extremely familiar with it by any means. So really it was just like the amalgamation of a lot of people showing me electronic music and hip hop music and me slowly getting interested in it. That kind of drove me to that point. I had another friend who was a former bandmate who was just obsessed with 90s electronic music. And he showed me a lot of stuff that I now, hold very dear to my heart. And it was just this yearning to break out of just being a drummer playing, angry rock music or whatever it may be. I wanted to do something with electronic music because I don't know. Yeah, realistically, it just came out of that. Just people showing me stuff and me watching my friends make stuff and being very inspired by them and wanting to do that for myself as well. And not quite knowing how. I remember early on, I would try making loops in Audacity, which anyone who uses DAWs knows that is like pulling teeth because there's literally no kind of beat matching. that's involved. It's just you cutting to the waveform as best you can. And I did make a couple of loops. It took forever, but from then on, I started to kind of download, pay for copies of Fruity Loop Studio 9 and 10, and just started messing around, not knowing, just firing, taking shots into the dark, so to speak, and coming up with really, really bizarre recordings. I had this project called 6 times 6 times 6 times 6 times 6 times 6 times 6, I think. And it was just me taking all of these demo songs that were on Fruity Loop Studio and just adding random stuff to them and just dragging the cursor and messing with the tempo, just playing FL like an instrument. But it was really weird and almost unlistenable because I recorded it with a Zoom mic. So from then on, I started to actually want to properly produce stuff and sample things. So I stopped being just lazy about it. I stopped just messing around. I started looking up YouTube tutorials and stuff like that, seeing how to take chunks of songs out. And I started using some of the samples that, the drum samples that were available on the program themselves. And then I started downloading other drum packs and stuff like that. Like Lander had a bunch of, when the packs were still free, I would get some Lander packs, and there would be more than just drums in there, musical elements and stuff like that, like cymbals or guitars or, piano chord progressions. And slowly but surely, I just started to kind of develop a little bit of a technique at just compiling all of these things together. Yeah, it just kind of happened one day after messing around for 2 years.
So when did you, I guess, officially start, producing, these music?
This style, I would say probably the spring of 2018. But Kitjo came in the summer of, late summer of 2018. I had another project called Still that was a bit more down tempo and a bit more experimental with I would try to take any sound I could find and just morph it as hard as I could and just make these really bizarre soundscapes that were almost annoying at times, but just develop environments. It was a bit more ambient than Kitjohari was. So that was really the start of me producing electronic music properly, or whatever it may be. And then Kitjo kind of came out of that. I was like, oh, let's do something that isn't ambient and extremely pensive and avant-garde or experimental or whatever. Let's do something that's fun. Let's make beats. And then I just kind of took off with that, and I stopped doing the other thing. And Kitjo's been more of a focus from then on.
Excellent. Yeah, that was the way I wanted to ask that question, when it officially began. So I also want to clarify, so all the sounds that we hear with Kitjohari is entirely samples. Is there any acoustic recordings for it at all?
Nope. It's all samples. Every single one of them. Yeah.
So how, then how, or actually from the samples you do collect and find, do you try and explore an idea with the samples together in a track, or do you more want to work on developing and livening up a beat or a groove?
It depends. I really just try to liven up things more than I do pursue a specific idea. Most of the times I'll just take a melodic aspect in the track and then try to match it with a drum sample and then see where it kind of goes from there. If it kind of starts to breathe from there on, then I'll kind of get rolling with it. But there have been some times where I had some very specific idea in mind. There's actually a track on the EP that I'm going to be releasing in March. Basically, it's a waltz, so it's a 6/4. So what I did was I just cut out 16 beats out of the 6/4. So I basically cut it like, 4 beats shy of its full 6/4 cycle. And then I set it to a 4/4 beat. So it kind of just makes this strange polyrhythmic feel that doesn't really feel like a polyrhythm, but actually is. And it worked out magnificently. And I was just like, oh, wow, that's great. So I've done that with 7 as well. Like, a lot of this is just metric modulation because basically, it's just coming down to just cutting pieces of audio and just zooming into the waveform and just looping it till it sounds good, which can be quite painstaking at times. But yeah, there has been some concepts, and they're all metric, really. As far as effects are concerned, sometimes I'll get an idea as well, but most of the concepts have been metric, and then more often than not, I am just livening up something else, trying to add a different rhythm or feel to it, find something as far-fetched as possible to make it sound fresh or different.
Yeah, it does sound like a very meticulous process to create your tracks. I did want to ask again, so you said you started off with the melodic, a melodic sample. Is that like one of the more important elements that you feel like listeners will gravitate to?
Yeah, definitely. Not only the listeners, but myself, I'll be listening to some song or a record or something, and I'll hear like a certain moment in that song and be like, ooh, that's cool. That's like perfect. That could be a loop. And then I'll bring it into Fruity Loops and then loop it or break it down by sections. Often counting it myself to make sure that it works, because depending on the BPM I use, if I sample something too short, it'll just sound too slow, or if I sample it too long, it'll sound too fast, or the inverse of all of that. And then then I start cruising for drum samples to kind of put over it. Even if I find something that works, sometimes I have plenty of just tracks that are just a drum beat I've set to a melodic sample, and then I'm like, okay, what now? And then nothing happens. I think like 2 times out of 10 I hit with something and I just think, oh yeah, let's do that. Oh, let's do that. My brain just goes into Jimmy Neutron mode and I just start bursting at the seams, and it all kind of falls into place. And then, I'm just left with a bunch of loops at the end.
Oh, it's always a good feeling to find something that really sticks and you can build upon that foundation.
Definitely. It just kind of happens, It's more haphazard, but it does take a lot of just clicking around, which, hurts my back.
So what kind of samples do you usually gravitate to? Like, how do you find them?
Well, like the same way I listen to any kind of other music, really. It's very much that same process, just nosing around on YouTube or listening to something, or, my friend's like, oh, check this out. I don't know. It just kind of hits, I'm just listening to whatever it may be. And I think, oh, that would be a cool loop. Or I just start humming it in my head. When I'm humming it, I know it's a loop, when I have listened to a song like earlier in the day, and then that loop just kind of happens in my brain. Then I'm like, oh, I got to try that. That should work. And, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But realistically, it's the same process as just how I enjoy music to begin with, but with just a kind of loop minded attitude. And, the two are really the same, it just kind of happens the same way the track just kind of happens sometimes. I just kind of walking around and I'm listening to something and I just kind of, oh yeah, hey, that would be cool.
Oh, awesome. So now let us talk about your upcoming release. It's called Tango Mango, and it's the follow-up to your, your full-length debut album, The Summer Always Ends, from last year. last year in 2020. What is the big difference between that album and this EP?
I feel like I'm a bit more focused because that album I actually produced in 2018, and then it just kind of sat around on my hard drive until Brent from Glue Gun just annoyed me to the point where he made me put it out. So I wasn't really planning on releasing it. I was just kind of like, I don't know, I don't care, whatever. But I think the difference is, I don't know. I've gotten a bit handier with Fruity Loops. There's more vocal samples in the songs themselves, I feel. And I don't know, it just feels a bit more focused and less haphazard, because that first album just kind of came together really fast and I didn't really know what I was doing mixing wise. I feel like this album just sounds better from a mixing perspective. Like things are slightly more EQ'd, and that's not always the case because the album's a bit all over the place time wise. Like I made 4 of the tracks in between March and May of 2020, but then 2 of the tracks are leftovers from 2019 when I was trying to work on something else. I had like almost an EP ready and then my hard drive crashed and I lost most of everything, but I had these 2 tracks that I had put on my Google Drive. So there's like kind of a bridging point between the tracks I made in 2020 and the tracks I made in 2018, which ended up being my 2020 release. It's all confusing and the chronology is a mess, but 4 of the tracks are a lot more focused and I've spent a lot more time learning the software and how to manipulate audio. And I feel like it's a bit stronger. There's more samples condensed into a song and the songs go further than they did before, in my opinion. But it's up for you, the listener, to decide, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was able to listen to the EP that you provided me before this interview. And I do, I feel that way, like what you said, that it's, I think it's, more, concrete in terms of like its flow in the track. And I think it does sound a little bit clearer between samples and like how they commingle together. Like then the types of samples you put together match up. And I think it's really, really great.
Thank you. That's good to hear. I mean, I think there's one song on there that samples Can, Charles Mingus, Barry Harris, Boards of Canada, and just a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of movies. It's, like those are not elements for the most part that should be fitting together, especially Can, which is actually kind of where I got the name for the EP. Is Can has that album Tago Mago, which is like some island in Spain or something. I just added N's to it. In the spirit of how I make my music, I sampled people's album titles as well. Basically, I'm the most unoriginal person.
Well, I think that's pretty cool that you're able to fit these like distant musical spheres in together.
Like I said, it just kind of happens sometimes, but it does take a lot of poking and prodding.
So at the time of this interview's being, I guess the radio broadcasting, it will be the single for this EP will be released along with the music video. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, the single is called Haidezinho Scores. Haidezinho is like a football player on the Brazil team in the 1970 FIFA World Cup, which is the last time Brazil won the FIFA World Cup. He's also just, a very important and beloved football player in Brazil. And the single has elements of football culture in it. It has elements of Brazilian musical culture in it. It also has disco elements in it. It has some film soundtrack elements in it. It has some cultural aspects of football hooliganism wrapped up into it. The sounds of announcers celebrating a goal in that particular final match of the 1970 FIFA World Cup, where they're just going like goal and freaking out or whatever. And yeah, the music video. I worked with Aaron Corbett, who's a fantastic Torontonian visual and musical artist. And I've known Aaron for quite some time, and they're just a genius. I don't want to toot their horn too hard there, but to be quite honest with you, I don't see anyone making tiny little robots that strum their guitar for them like that. They're just capable of pretty much anything, and working with them was an absolute pleasure. They're very communicative, and we shot back and forth by email a bunch. And they, I had something of a concept for the music video, and they just kind of rolled with it. They took my ideas and they pushed some aside and came up with some better ones. And oh boy, yeah, I was extremely pleased with the result. They really know what they're doing. And I actually ended up buying their record when I paid them for the video, because I thought, hey, this is a real one.
Yeah, Aaron Corbett was a previous audience artist on this show, so I totally know their musical and visual genius firsthand.
Yeah, there's something else, that's for sure.
So I guess this the track, I'm not going to attempt trying to say the track name for my poor pronunciation. So this track is very, the sports fans will love this track.
Yeah, I would say so. I think they'll like the video a bit more, though, because the video definitely prominently features the football element a bit more than the track does. The track certainly has those aspects to it, but the video drives that whole theme home. Really, really does, in some hilarious ways that you were not expecting.
Oh yeah, I can't wait, especially that Aaron has produced the music video for it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really psychedelic. It's really comedic at certain times. And we did this cool thing where, I sample little bits of interviews from television, and I got them to sync up the footage in time with the samples as they're happening in the song. So you have that visual kind of cue card to demarcate the song itself. It's a heck of an adventure.
Yeah, sounds pretty involved.
Definitely.
Is there any other interesting facts you want us to know about Tango Mango?
Yeah, we're going to be making a cassette release. We're going to have a run of 30 cassettes or something like that. We really went all out on the packaging and stuff. It's going to be real swell. Got an orange cassette tape, because mangoes are orange. Well, orange-ish, golden yellow. It was the closest we could find. Forgive us, folks. I think I've pretty much said everything I could say about it. I guess, I don't know. I'm trying to market it to Brazilian audiences, because it features so many Brazilian aspects of Brazilian musical culture. So I'm actually going to be taking out some Facebook ads, and I'm going to be writing them in Portuguese and getting my Brazilian friend to proofread them, so I don't just sound like someone who just used Google Translate. Because I got some conception of some Portuguese, but certainly not fluent by any means. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to push this in every direction I can, I guess. That's a fun fact about it. I have a whole French email write-up set up, because I do speak French fluently, actually. So yeah, I don't know. Just firing it off everywhere I can.
Yeah, that's pretty neat, actually, to try and promote to other, I guess, other countries with like the knowledge, I guess, language knowledge you have. And then I think I do remember I think you mentioned you have gotten interested in like Brazilian culture, that you want to try and reach out to Brazilian audiences as well.
Yeah, I've been trying to half-heartedly studying Portuguese for the last 2 years now, and I'm really enamored with the culture and the history, especially with the music. And oftentimes the culture and the history musically are just tied in. They're attached at the hip, as one would say. And yeah, I don't know. It's all really fascinating to me, and I definitely, I've definitely taken my fair share of Brazilian culture and infused it into the music I've made. So it seems only logical to try to push it in that direction.
I hear you. So, well, I think we should wrap up our talk together. Let us now.
Started.
Oh, oh, we could probably go on forever, but
yeah, that's the thing.
We don't want to give our audience too much.
We don't want to give them a headache.
So we haven't said it yet, but why don't you tell us when Tango Mango will be released?
Yeah, it's going to be March 5th, 2021, the first Bandcamp Friday of March 5th. I think the Bandcamp Friday, that's self-explanatory there, but yeah, that's when it's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So keep your eyes peeled. Glue Gun Records, baby.
Oh, and also I think I saw in one of your posting that you'll be taking proceeds and donating them. Do you want to, who are you donating the money to?
Donating it to the Six Nations Community Food Bank, out on the Six Nations territory between Brantford and Cambridge. Yeah. I don't know. I find it ridiculous that people who live 10 kilometers away from me don't have potable drinking water. And yeah, that's pretty much, again, self-explanatory. I want to give back as much as I can. I'm pretty privileged to be able to sit here and make this music in, relative comfort and, objective luxury. And then people very close to me are, just, yeah, it's ugly to think about what's happening very close to me and how comfortable I am and how fortunate I am to be able to indulge myself and make all of this stuff. So it only makes sense to just try to help people.
Well, that's great that you're doing that.
I think so too.
What are your, I guess, future plans moving forward from the CP as Kitjohari, or do you have plans at all?
I do have plans. I'm actually working on another full-length album. I'm about halfway there. Kind of hit a couple of stumbling blocks, but I guess there's no real rush at the moment. But in the future, I do want to start shifting away from making this music exclusively using online samples. I want to start recording from my record collection, because I do have some records that I can't find, recordings of online that I would like to sample. I also want to be able to perform this stuff live, which is one of the most troubling aspects of what I do, is that I can't exactly perform live just using a laptop. It's just not a very enthralling live experience to see me there just pressing play and then standing like a mannequin in a storefront or something. So yeah, I want to be able to try to take the spirit of what I'm doing and apply it to analog instruments and move from there. After this next album I'm working on, basically, yeah.
Very cool. How can our audience find and support you and your music?
Exclusively on Glue Gun Records Bandcamp page. That's where all my music is. And on the Glue Gun YouTube page, that's where my music video is. You can go view there, subscribe, like, comment, whatever you want to do. And yeah, that's the only place I have my music, because that's the only place that properly generally pays the artist,
All right. And Chris, one last question for you.
All right.
What are your words of wisdom?
I guess with all this pandemic stuff, is just take a deep breath. Everything's going to be okay soon enough.
Excellent. Yeah, take some calming deep breaths and we'll hopefully get through it in one piece.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yes. Chris, thank you so much for this chat with you after so long. I hope to see you in person soon.
Nick, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's always great talking to you.